True love is real. This is a notion that I've propagated on my channel for pretty much the entirety of my channel's history. And throughout the course of my channel's history, I've been met with resistance time and time again every time I have expressed the idea that true love is not only real, but achievable for you, for the viewer. Now, it wasn't until recently that I realized why there's such a big discrepancy between my perspective about love and your perspective about love. You see, statistically speaking, the likelihood is that you don't believe in true love, and the reason why is because you have not seen it in your own life. Recently, my parents' anniversary passed. My parents, I don't know which anniversary it was. I think it was 33, 34 years. Doesn't really matter. It's over 30 years. And I know this because I'm 24 and they were married for at least 10 years before I was born. So we'll just call it their 34th anniversary. My parents have been married for 34 years. And I realized recently that most people did not have the experience of having both parents in their lives, and not only that, but having both parents together for the entirety of their adolescence. I am in the minority in that regard. And here's the thing. If you've never actually experienced it for yourself, then you're going to believe that it's not possible. This is where the idea that men should go their own way, for example, comes from. It comes from the idea that marriage is simply not a viable goal to have in this day and age. And look, there's some credence to that. I submit that there is some credence to that because dating is not the same as it was when my parents got together. I'll be the first to admit that. But while that is the case, I am in a very healthy relationship. I've been with my girlfriend for over a year and a half now, which is crazy to say. And it's safe to say that my girlfriend and I are on a very positive trajectory moving forward. And we've definitely talked about marriage at the very least. Why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this because I want to be the one to expose you to something new. I want to be the one to expose you to a different side of life that you have not yet had the chance to experience for yourself. Because ultimately, in order to accomplish a goal, whether it be related to relationships or business or anything else in between or beyond, the first step is believing that it's possible. The second step is believing that it's possible for you. And the third step is taking action in accordance with that belief. So I want to be the one to help you accomplish that first step, to see that it's possible. That said, what are some life lessons that my parents have taught me about love and, to be more specific, about marriage? Well, the first life lesson that they've taught me about marriage, and this is something that you really want to pay attention to because this will make or break any relationship that you develop with a woman. And that is, conflict resolution is the single most important skill to have if you want to have a long-lasting relationship. I think what a lot of people believe, a big misnomer that a lot of people buy into, is that in order to have a very long marriage, you have to avoid conflict altogether. And this is simply impossible because you have to think about it. Your partner is the person with whom you're going to spend the majority of your time with for the rest of your life. I'm sure that up to this point in life, my dad and my mom have spent more time with and around each other than they have around anyone else. Anyone else, including their parents, their friends, etc. I'm saying this to say that when you spend that much time around somebody, you are going to have conflicts. My girlfriend and I, we have already had conflicts. We haven't had arguments, but we've had conflicts. And anytime we've had conflicts, we've made it a point to make sure that we resolve the conflicts as soon as we possibly can. And this is a lesson that I have learned from my parents. You see, my parents, they've had very explosive arguments in the past. I'm not going to go too deep into detail because those are family matters, but I will say that there were at least a few occasions throughout my childhood where not only did I have to intervene, but also I thought it was over. I thought my life is about to change, and it's not about to change in a positive way. In fact, there were times where my mom a few days after the argument, would come up to me in private and say, "Hey, Jordan, would you rather move to Chicago or San Jose?" Because those are the two cities where her family primarily lives. And I was like, neither. I don't want to leave Dallas at all. Okay, that's the extent to which they have argued. It's gotten to the point where my mom has literally gone searching for apartments, taking tours with my older sister. Okay, so it's not like they haven't had arguments, and it's not like they haven't had really, really bad arguments, but the situation always played out the exact same. They would have these arguments, I or my sister or both of us would intervene, and then a week would pass by, and then suddenly everything was back to normal. And it's not like it was an overnight thing, it was a gradual thing. Everything would just suddenly go back to normal. And I always found this really, really fascinating how they were able to pretty much brush those explosive arguments off as if they never happened. But I don't get the sense that they were simply internalizing these things, because usually these arguments happen and then after that, they don't really resurface after that. And I think the reason why this is because they probably talk about these things in private. I've never really sat in on these conversations, but I'm sure that they probably have some sort of system that they've implemented time and time again to talk about the things that they're feeling. Because ultimately, all arguments occur because of feelings. And so, once they express how they feel about a situation, they can then move on. And furthermore, they're able to see the bigger picture of how meaningful the marriage is to them. Because I would imagine that the further you get into a relationship, the more insubstantial an argument becomes. Because the idea of throwing away a 20-year marriage versus throwing away a 2-month relationship is not really the same. Like I said, my primary takeaway from those arguments and the ensuing resolutions is that conflict resolution is the single most important skill to have if you want to have a sustainable relationship. Granted, if you're having to resolve conflicts every single day, then maybe you're just with the wrong person. Or maybe you're not ready for a relationship, they're not ready for a relationship, or neither of you is ready for a relationship. But the key is, if you want to have a long-lasting relationship, regardless of how many conflicts you have to develop the ability to resolve them as quickly as possible so that they don't compound over time. Because those compounding conflicts which aren't resolved, that's what leads to divorce. That is generally what leads to divorce. So conflict resolution is the number one skill that you need to have in order to have a successful marriage.